The views expressed on the Warren and Bradley Show are not necessarily those held by the hosts, Warren and Bradley, nor those of the proprietors of the website, warrenandbradley.com.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire!
Let's make some magic.
Hello, it is magic time. Welcome once again to the Warren and Bradley Show. I'm one of your hosts, Bradley Victor.
I'm the other host, Warren Van.
Yes, indeed. Episode 26 of the Warren and Bradley Show, and we can start right off with more horrible car bullshit that I've been going through lately. I often think my life would be so much better if I did not need a vehicle.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And you're living that dream right now, but your work is, well, nominally within walking distance.
Yeah, it's not in walking distance for a normal person, but I like to walk,
Yeah.
so it is within walking distance for me.
Astute listeners may remember that a while ago my beautiful truck exploded, and I got rid of it, and then I got a cheap car to replace it. And on Friday, I was driving about and suddenly lost all power steering and everything. I was like, oh, and barely made it. I was on my way to my dad's house. So I took a look under the engine and saw that the serpentine belt was completely chewed up. Those of you who know about cars know that it's a belt that runs everything like the AC compressor, the power steering, the alternator. So
Seems like an important belt.
It's a belt that you need. And so I went, oh, God damn it. And I got a new belt and had this huge ordeal of putting a new one on Friday. But then after I put the belt on, started the car up, there was still this horrible coming from the car. So I took a look again and noticed that the pulley on the power steering pump was all askew as it was turning.
Yeah.
And realized that I needed a new power steering pump. Or not power steering pump, water pump.
Yeah.
Which, again, anyone who knows about cars knows that, you know, the part isn't that expensive, but the labor is like $500
Yes.
usually to get a new water pump put in. So I went, I'll do it myself.
I can labor.
Yeah, so yesterday on Saturday, let's see, I think I got up about 6 o'clock. By about 8:30 or 9, I actually started working on the vehicle, and I was done by about 8 o'clock that evening.
Oh.
It was horrible.
At one point during the day, I saw a picture of it on Facebook that IT guy John had put on there, because he had
Yes.
been over at your house.
Yes.
And then I was playing PlayStation at the house, just relaxing, and IT guy John came in and just looked at me and shook his head and was like, I don't know. And it seemed like you were having a really rough time and it had been going on all day.
Yes.
And I wasn't willing to get involved in any way. I don't think there's anything I could have helped with, so I would just continue to play PlayStation.
No, IT guy John came by. He was helpful more in like moral support, and he also went and got a tool I needed that I did not have with me at the time. He brought some beer and some Dr. Pepper over for me while I was working on the vehicle. And IT guy John and Warren live together, by the way.
Yes, we're roommates. Yeah, it's really something.
Yeah. Their relationship goes beyond just the professional one that we've established here on the show.
Yes.
But yeah, it was the kind of thing where I don't mind working on my own car to a certain extent. I like the idea of it. I like the idea of not paying somebody an exorbitant amount of money to do something that I could potentially do myself. But that being said, mechanics also have access to lifts and impact wrenches and pretty much every tool they need to do a job.
Experience.
And experience.
It makes things much faster and easier.
But even without the experience, if I just had all the tools I needed and the facilities, the repair would have gone a lot easier. Because a lot of the time I was just sitting there without the tool that I needed to do the job and trying to improvise some weird fucked up way to actually make it work. You need to be a midget with tiny hands to work on a car nowadays, it seems like. And even though my car isn't that new, it's still so cramped and crazy. And the car manufacturer just, it seems like they're purposefully making it impossible for anyone who is not a certified Volkswagen mechanic to work on the car. Like they have all these weird hex bolts and all this weird bullshit in there. It's like, why? What's the point? And they're like, oh, you need Volkswagen tool Z2R-F12 to complete this repair. I'm like, go fuck yourself. So basically, I got through trial and error and all this bullshit. I got the water pump out, put the new one in, and then I had to jack the engine out of the car. And then when trying to put the engine back in the car, I was running into all sorts of horrible problems because I don't have an engine hoist either.
Well, how did you jack the engine out? You just put jacks underneath the engine?
Yeah, I disconnected the engine mounts and then put a jack under, and which was also very nerve-wracking because I'm like, oh god, what am I destroying while I'm
that's not
raising the engine up?
Normal way to lift an engine up, is it?
Well, you can. It's the way that people who work on their cars themselves do if they don't have an engine hoist.
They do that? They like put jacks under there and they lift it up? Because I always think about when a engine's being lifted out, something like cranking it up from the top.
Yeah, well, that's what you should do. If you're a mechanic, that's what you would do. Then getting it back in, since I didn't have a hoist and I'm one person and the engine weighs hundreds of pounds. Yeah. Trying to position it where it needed, it was just horrible. I had to drain the coolant. This is all very interesting for everyone listening. But
it's car talk.
Yeah, it's car talk.
We're going to start doing like puzzles and laughing a lot for no reason.
Yeah. I had to put new coolant in and circulate it through the system and make sure everything was working. And then my radiator coolant fans never went on, and my car started getting insanely hot. So I realized that at some point while I was fucking with the engine, I somehow destroyed whatever makes my coolant fans go on. So that's the next project. We all make little mistakes every now and then. I'm sure it was just when I was horribly banging on the engine trying to get it back in.
Well, you've got a lot more car experience now because you've been fucking around with cars for a while.
Yeah.
And so even the whole thing about you lifting an engine out of a car, I would have no idea. You know what I mean? If I were to try to that, who knows what would happen? Someone would probably be killed or crushed or something. So,
well, more than knowledge, which is very helpful, I have to say, which I don't really have much of. Audacity is a big part of it.
That's another thing, too,
Just
right?
deciding that you will do it. Because most people would be like, what the fuck? I'm not even going to
Well, the other thing is because you also know that, like, if you're audacious enough to do these things, that you're going to end up in the circumstance that you ended up in, most likely, right?
True.
You're in a very stressful situation that takes a long time to resolve.
And there is a certain satisfaction of doing it. And once I had everything back together and it was working and that horrible squealing wasn't coming from the water pump anymore, I was like, yeah. And I had another great moment where I took the old water pump out, because a lot of times when you're a novice working on a car, you're like, maybe it's this. And so you buy this, and then you rip the old this out, and it looks exactly the same, and there isn't any obvious sign of failure on the part.
Yeah.
So you're like, it's a lot of guesswork, because I don't have a computer for diagnostics work.
It'd be
or
weird if
like
you
that.
did, yeah.
Yeah. So when I ripped the old water pump out, it looked very pleasingly ruined, which I was very glad of. Like, it was very
satisfying. Right?
It was a very obviously,
you diagnosed a problem, and it was obviously you're correct.
Right.
And you got to replace the obviously faulty part with the correct part.
Because when I had my old Saab, I used to do shit to it all the time, where there would be some issue, and I'd be like looking on forums and stuff on the internet, and people are like, well, maybe it's this. I'd be like, So then I'd buy this, and then I'd put that in, but I would have no idea if it was actually the thing that was wrong with it.
Well, I think I told you this the other day. I couldn't figure out how to like erase podcasts from my iPod, and I looked on forums online.
Just swipe.
Yeah, you swipe to the right.
Yeah,
and I was very satisfied with that. That's as technical as I'm going to get with things, and I felt very satisfied. Now I like just swipe them and delete them.
They wander the streets, scavenging for loose change and discarded cigarette butts.
Spare $1
and give me a motherfucking cigarette.
I ran out of gas ways back. Got me that.
You smoke weed, don't you?
Good, losing my car.
I could use some change.
They may be mentally unstable and deserving of our charity, but that doesn't mean they can't be selected as the Warren and Bradley Show Street Freak of the Week.
So, as I mentioned earlier, I was working on my engine yesterday, and there were many pauses and breaks where I was like, ugh, just kind of holding my head and staring at the engine for a while, trying to figure out what the hell to do. And at one point, there's this little bench near the parking lot. I was doing this all in the parking lot of my apartment building, which was fun because as I was doing it, people would walk by and be like, "Is your car broken?" Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope you get it fixed. Thank you.
It's a nice sentiment.
Just over and over. I would take breaks every once in a while and sit on this bench and drink Dr. Pepper and smoke cigarettes and cry into my hands.
It's a lot like the podcast, but outside. Yeah.
And I had left my pack of cigarettes and my lighter on this bench, and then I was back over at the car investigating some component and freaking out. And suddenly I heard somebody from the bench say, "Can I have one of these cigarettes?" And I went, "Ugh," and turned around, and there was a homeless man sitting on the bench. I don't know how long he had been there, but he was just staring at me. And I had left my Zippo and my cigarette pack right in close proximity there. And for some reason, I got very protective and like, uptight about it.
Yeah.
I just imagined him going, and grabbing the Zippo and cigarettes and running away.
Yeah.
But he asked for one, and since it would have been weird for me to like be, no, and like run over there and grab the stuff and run back.
Always so important to you that you look good in the eyes of like
the eyes
crazy.
of the homeless. Well, you know, if word gets around that they have bad interactions with me, then
They
after
won't
a while,
interact with you anymore?
Exactly.
Okay.
So anyway, I was like, yeah, go ahead. And I was just very uptight because I saw him, he picked up the pack of cigarettes, and I could imagine his dirty fingers touching the filters.
Well, normally
of all the
you
cigarettes.
pull the cigarette out of the pack and give it to him.
Yeah. But he was like, he grabbed one. He didn't seem like he rubbed his fluids on anything else.
Ew.
And then he took my lighter, and this is where I was even more uptight because I've had this Zippo for several years. It's the longest I've ever managed to keep a Zippo before, because usually people grab them and steal them, and
That's nice.
They don't last long. And he lit the cigarette, and I just watched him like a hawk as he placed it back on the cigarette pack. And I was like, okay. So then I was trying to think, when would it be
appropriate for you to walk back over there and grab it?
and grab my stuff. And so I kind of did a nonchalant, like, I was like rubbing my hands with the cloth and walked over there.
Gosh, it's just Victorian sort of things about this, like this way you're handling this homeless person. Like you don't want to hurt their feelings, even the
They
slightest.
do have feelings, Warren. They do.
Just go over there and grab your goddamn cigarettes. Who cares? He doesn't even know where he is.
Yeah, well, you know, he seemed pretty with it. So I went over and I went and got my cigarettes and lit one, so it made it look like
That's what
why.
I was thinking would be a good idea, right? Because you go over there and that's a good way. You have to pick up the cigarettes to light your own cigarette and then just take it back.
Right. Which I did, and so then I went back to the engine, and I was still kind of uncomfortable because he was just on the bench watching me.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for me to do anything, especially when it's something I don't really know how to do.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, there's that idea of somebody watching you and you're like, oh, what the fuck, and god damn it, and they're just like.
Yeah,
it's
the same thing if you're like playing even like solitaire on a computer.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable to have someone like leering behind you, like seeing the move you should make, wanting to say it as you're like looking for it. It's just an uncomfortable way to do things.
So then as I was perusing the engine compartment, this interaction I'd had with the whole cigarette thing, he seemed coherent. But as I was working on the engine, I suddenly started hearing these like, or, and I didn't want to look back because then it would acknowledge the fact that he was doing odd things, and usually I like to ignore people when they do weird things. But the noises continued, and then he started going, oh, yes.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. Uh-oh. And I could imagine some weird internal dialogue where his split personality was telling him to do something horrible to me, and he was agreeing with the split personality.
Like push the engine under your face
exactly.
or something, yeah.
So then I just continued to ignore him. Finally, he came up behind me as I was leaning. I was basically buried from the waist up in my engine compartment, and I could hear this heavy breathing above me. And he was leaning over the engine, watching what I was doing. And so I extricated myself from the engine, turned around to look at him, and he went, yeah. And he was sort of like the old man who comes to the construction site and wants to pretend that they know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so he started giving me this whole spiel about how he used to be a mechanic.
Oh, that's convenient.
Yeah.
You should put this guy to work.
Well, and so he said, I used to work on cars for 20 years. Oh. I'm like, oh, okay. And he only looked like he was about 40, so I don't know. Well, I guess that could work. I guess he had just lost his job and went crazy. But then he started telling me these things about engines that were completely out of a fantasy world. He was talking...
Now you're acting shocked that the crazy person is telling you crazy things.
Well, I know, but it's like... If you're going to go up to somebody who's working on a car, I obviously have some knowledge about the internal combustion engine because I have my engine apart out of my car. And he just starts telling me, I don't know if he was trying to fuck with me or if he was just completely lost in some weird fantasy world. And I think it was the latter. But he was telling me about how he was pointing to the turbocharger on my car, which does not have a turbocharger. He was talking about the cylinder heads, and I have a 6-cylinder engine, but he was talking about the V8. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's a VR.
These are all things you say when you talk about cars, though.
Yeah, and it's almost like he had read a book, which I doubt he's ever read a book, but he had read a book about cars and how to talk about cars, and he was just trying to throw those phrases out to see what kind of reaction I got.
With cars, yeah.
And of course, going on with my not wanting to offend homeless people, I just agreed with everything he said.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he started trying to give me advice about what I was doing, and it was just horribly annoying. And then he started asking me for more cigarettes, and there was beer out there, so he wanted a beer. And so I gave him another beer, or I gave him a beer.
What, you're giving him beer, too?
Yeah, I just wanted him to go away.
This is not the way you make people go away. You don't keep giving them things.
Well, that's a very good point. But I gave him a beer. I wouldn't give him any more cigarettes. And then he went back to the bench, and he started drinking the beer. But suddenly there was this bike cop right there. And he's like, Dan, you better be careful with that. And Dan went, ha, 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 and started laughing again. And then the cop was like, should you be drinking that out here, Dan? Where'd you get that beer, Dan? And then Dan points at me and goes, he gave me the beer. And the cop looked at me and was like, shook his head and was like, oh no. And I was like, what's going on here? What have I become a part of? And then this other homeless person from across the street who was just laying in the, this dirt area, he got up and because he heard Dan and the cop talking, and or maybe he just heard the word beer, and he wanders over. He sits down with Dan, and they start passing the beer back and forth. But then he notices that there's more beer. Yeah. So he starts looking longingly at that, and the cop is like, "Looks like we got a party here." It's like, "What are you doing, policeman? Go away or go fight some crime." So I had this weird homeless campfire chat thing going on. It was for like 2 hours while I was trying to put my engine back together. It was the most annoying thing in the world.
Let me tell you what would have happened if I would have been in the situation. If the homeless person would have came over and started, like, approaching my cigarettes, asking for cigarettes, I would have came over, took them, and told them to get fucking lost. Because I don't want to be involved in these situations. Yeah. That's terrible.
Well, in hindsight, that might have been the proper way to handle things. But I'm just such a nice guy, Warren.
Are you?
I guess.
You're not nice to anybody besides to the homeless people.
So anyway, that was my homeless interaction for this week. And I guess we can wrap it up right there. Congratulations, retired mechanic beer drinking homeless person. You've been selected as the Warren and Bradley Show Street Freak of the Week.
Our hats are off to you, Mr. Homeless Man, because you've been selected as the Warren and Bradley Show Street Freak of the Week.
Speaking of street freaks of the week, yesterday I walked to Fairhaven, the lovely neighborhood to the south of
the yuppie gift
Bellingham.
shop.
Yeah, that's
Mecca,
like it's like you can buy all sorts of like pet toys and
fudge.
like cards, decorative cards there. And I went down there because I wanted to go to the hamburger place that we have, local institution Wins, yes, to get a yummy burger, which I love very much.
They're quite yummy.
And as I was approaching the hamburger place, I heard yelling, and there was a crazy homeless man yelling very loudly, about nothing in particular, and standing there yelling
by himself.
Yeah, by himself.
Okay.
You can tell he'd been there for a while because people are kind of gathered around, like watching him. So I went inside, ordered my burger, eventually got my burger, was eating my burger. He was yelling the entire time. Finally, the police came, and they had the same look.
Yeah, because they all know.
He was like, "Oh, it's this guy," and then they were like standing there looking at him for a while, and people would walk up and like say things to him and just walk by, and he was just yelling. I got done with my burger, I left and went, and he was still yelling the entire time.
So the cops just stood there for a while he yelled, yelling. And then did they go away, or were they still there?
One of them left. I don't know where the other one went, but the other one was just standing there listening to him yell.
What are we going to do about this? He just keeps yelling. What are we going to do?
Well, what do you do, though?
I don't know. Is that disturbing the peace?
It is disturbing the peace, but it's like, go tackle him and arrest him and put him in handcuffs and then throw him in jail.
Well, if this were Southern California, yeah, they would tase him and beat him and throw him in a squad car, probably.
But then he's like out the next day just doing the same thing, so it's just easier to...
Or they'd beat him to death, like that poor homeless guy down... Where was that in California?
Where'd this happen?
Didn't you hear about that story?
No.
It was somewhere in Southern California. This mentally disturbed, like schizophrenic homeless guy... I think cops stopped him because they thought there was some report of a robbery or something, or somebody was trying to break into cars, but he was not involved in it at all. Yeah. He had somebody else's mail or something in his backpack.
Yeah.
And his dad was a former policeman. He has mental problems. He's out on the street. His parents have tried to get him help and everything, but he's but he's not violent. He's not dangerous. Anyway, this whole group of cops stop him. They start beating him and tasing him. He is crying and yelling for his dad. Daddy, daddy, please help me, please help me, please help.
Yeah.
And they beat him to death.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
It's rough down there, isn't it?
Yeah.
The police are so angry down
It's,
there.
it's that whole thing of it. We don't seem to have that as much around here, but you have to kind of wonder about why people want to be police officers, I guess. And I think for some people, it's, I want to throw my weight around.
It is the
fuck with
weird,
people.
like, it's the power thing, right?
Yeah.
That you can do whatever you want, whenever you want to, and you can push people around
Yeah.
and stuff, which I think is a motivation for some of them that
But it
join
was
up.
so horrible. There's video of it. I mean, you can't see it really close because it's people. They were trying to keep all the bystanders back.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
They just beat the shit out of him, and he's not resisting at all. He's just on the ground, covering his head, crying crying for his dad, and they killed him. Yeah,
That's a good time.
yeah.
But I've talked about this before with police officers. The fact that you're people you're dealing with all day, and if you're out there for long enough, I can see where you get to the point where it's like you start getting angry and you have a difficult time dealing with that, especially if you're in an environment like Los Angeles. It's just full of a bunch of crazy psychopaths running around everywhere doing crazy things, driving into each other. It would be a little bit much. So I guess you either get to the point like the police officers here in Bellingham where you're buddies with the homeless people. You try to just be as easy as possible. But I don't think that's as easy to do in an urban environment.
No,
There's a lot
no.
of like guns and whatnot and a lot of crime going on all the time. It's a difficult dynamic.
Yeah. And it's that whole thing of you're given this little utility belt with a taser and a billy club and a gun on it, and at some point you want to use that stuff. It just sits there speaking to you, whispering to you from your locker.
There's a Supreme Court decision like last week about a couple police officers in Seattle who tased a woman who was pregnant.
Huh.
They apparently, what they did was deemed okay. I guess it was too, because she wouldn't get out of her car, and they were like, you need to get out of your car, and she wouldn't, and they were like, okay, we're going to tase you, and they tased her.
Yeah,
The thing is, you got it, but the thing is, the tasers, I like tasers in the sense that it's better to be tased than to be shot.
Well, yeah. But, I mean, the alternative wasn't to shoot her if she didn't get out of her car.
But the thing is, if you're trying to get somebody to have a car, what is you can't just let her drive away.
Yeah, I guess.
You have to do something at that point.
Yeah.
And that's the thing where it's like, they tased her, she was okay afterwards.
Was
Most
the
people
baby
are.
okay?
Yeah, the baby's fine. Everyone's fine. It is better than being shot.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I've never been tased or shot, but...
No, I'm kind of curious. Would you take a tasing if you could?
Yeah, I probably would.
Yeah, I would. I'm curious too. Because I think to be a police officer, you have to be tased before you have a taser.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, you have to take a tase and see what it's like.
Just like with special forces troops, they make them undergo waterboarding and all sorts of things.
Oh, they have to do all sorts of things.
Yeah.
We're not going to be special forces troops. Yeah. Oh, and we're probably not going to be police officers either.
Yeah, probably not.
No.
Of course, that could be an interesting... You were talking about whether it would be possible for you to be the Pope or a congressman. You could join the police academy.
Oh, I could be a police
You're
officer.
college educated.
Yeah, I mean, why not? It does not appeal to me at
You
all.
as a cop is the most amusing thing I can think of right now.
My life is based around not having to do annoying things or deal with annoying people. So the fact that like I get calls that someone's being awful and I like have to go deal with it does not appeal to me at all.
If you were a cop, I would test the boundaries of our friendship by I don't know. I'd be walking around someday, and if I saw you drive by in your patrol car, I would take off all my clothes and just go and start running around crazily naked and see what you would do.
We end up like Marge Simpson when she became a police officer, remember?
Oh,
and
yeah.
she just like looks around and she sees all the crimes going on constantly. Horse without a diaper. You know what I mean? And it's... I don't know. You have to get in a certain frame of mind where you let some stuff go, but you have to respond to things that are really important.
So when you respond to the call with me naked, urinating on the sidewalk, drinking with an open container, and I'm like, "Hey, buddy, what you gonna do, huh?" What would you do?
I'd tase the shit out of you. I might shoot you.
Celebrity Minute on the Warren and Bradley Show.
Top story: Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg marries Priscilla Chan.
Yep.
Mark Zuckerberg wasted no time changing his relationship status on Facebook. The site's founder and CEO, 28, married longtime love Priscilla Chan, 27, during a small ceremony at his home in Palo Alto, California. It is their first marriage for both Zuckerberg and Chan, who met at Harvard University and have been together for nearly a decade. It's interesting timing because the Facebook IPO just went
that's
public.
weird, isn't it?
Was she waiting for him to be financially secure before they got married? I just don't know if you're going to be able to take care of me in later life. And now that he's how many billions of dollars did he make?
Facebook's been valued at like $100 billion or something ridiculous.
And he owns how many
just a lot
shares?
Yeah. Too much. Yeah, way too much. We mentioned weeks ago that I had just seen The Social Network.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to see where this woman works in that movie.
Well, I'm not sure, because there were the two Asian girls that him and his friends start dating, but I don't know if she's supposed to be one of those or not. But he's been dating her since Harvard, so...
And he didn't seem to be in a long-term relationship during the time when things were starting up, when he was hanging out with Justin Timberlake's character.
One thing you have to keep in mind, though, is that is a movie.
It is a movie, but it is based
it is
on events.
Well, and that's the thing that I've read about that movie, too, is that apparently the public record events about Facebook and the founding and the things that happened are all fairly faithfully portrayed in the movie, but most of the personal stuff is kind of meh. Apparently, he's not as big of a dick as he appears to be in the movie. I don't know. This little wedding photo, which we'll post online, he looks like a nice little guy, a little nerd, a little pot belly going.
What do you think? Prenup here. What do you think's going on?
Oh, wow. Well, it's in California, so it's a no-fault divorce, 50-50 split. So I don't know. She's a billionaire, no matter what happens.
Yeah, but if you're him, you have to like limit your exposure.
Well, the thing I like about this marriage, Bradley, the marriage counselor here, is they've been together for over like a decade.
Yeah.
And from
that doesn't mean they're going to be together for another 50.
Yeah, but before he was rich, they were together. It's the ones who come in after you've already become wealthy that you got to worry about.
But at the same 50-50 is when you're as wealthy as him.
Yeah, well, I know
50-50 is like
it's a big deal.
The GDP of many nations on Earth, and you know what I mean. And it would have ripples on the stock market. So. If you get a prenup, is that actually going to work, or do they settle on something?
I don't know. I'm not sure how it works in California, because they do have the state law that requires a 50-50 split, but people still sign prenups, and I don't. Well, I'm not sure which supersedes what. And
we know about the whole debacle involving the Los Angeles Dodgers, right?
Yeah,
that whole thing, and that's a complete mess. It was a disaster for the Dodgers. The Dodgers fans aren't happy about it. I mean, what's going to happen if this breaks up to Facebook? Is Facebook going to start going crappy, Is this going to affect the future of the internet?
Are you worried, Wayne?
A little bit. The more I know about marriage, the more I know about like money, the more this stuff like this is the only thing I think about when I hear about people getting married, because I know people I work with, I know people who get divorced.
So cynical.
It's not cynical so much as like based on reality and what you learn about people's existences. That most people are just living to pay off other people they are married to in the past.
Well, for your sake and for the sake of a lot of people who like to post inane status updates, hopefully their marriage will be long.
Oh, I hope so. God bless them.
Next story. Alanis Morissette, I'll breastfeed until my son wants to stop. This is part of that irritating attachment parenting thing. There was it the Time magazine cover that had the boob?
Oh, that's the one. That's the one that's at my house.
Yeah.
Oh, we have it on my toilet at my house on the back of it.
Right.
And there's the child sucking the mother's boob on the front.
3-year-old or however old it is. Yeah.
I take it and I turn it over.
Yeah.
To the back because I don't want to look at that when I'm peeing. But every time I go back to the bathroom, someone's been turning it back over to the front.
Maybe they're using that as masturbatory
Either IT John or other roommate, fisherman guy, are like really trying to fuck with me because I don't. It's a disturbing image.
Yeah.
And it's not something I want to look at it.
Are you one of those people who wants women to not be able to breastfeed?
No, I think it's fine, but I also think that like it's just having some kid on a stool like looking at me as he's breastfeeding, as the woman's giving me this like self-satisfied look is a weird thing to look at.
Fucking irritating to me. And I've said before, once a child is old enough to ask for the boob, the child is too old to get the boob. Alanis Morissette says that all new parents ought to know that attachment parenting is the right way to do things.
I'll tell you why I don't like attachment parenting. The article in the Time magazine, I looked at it. Mostly I looked at the pictures. But the doctor, I think his name is Bill Sears or something, who's a proponent of this. They showed his house and like his office. His interior decorating choices make him look like a creep. He's got like pictures of like orca whales, you know what I mean?
Oh,
cheesy, weird stuff. You know what I mean? That you're like, if I see that kind of like decorations in someone's house, I don't trust them on a certain level because I think they're weird.
Well, I think just what he's saying would cause me not to trust him.
Yeah.
Anyway. This whole thing is so fucking irritating. It's taken the obnoxious helicopter parenting that we've already had for the last generation that turns kids into self-entitled little fuckers, and it's making it even worse. It's the end product of this bullshit that's been going on forever. Alanis is saying, I think it affords the child when he grows up to have a lot less therapy to go to. For me, I protect his safety and his well-being and his attachment. This stage of development is very important. She also says that the child sleeps with her and her husband. We're definitely skin-on-skin connected as much as possible. It's disturbing to me.
Well, there's just a certain point where, as a person, you need to develop some sort of autonomy from your parents.
Yes.
And this does seem to be dragging out the process a little bit too far.
Yes, and they point to hunter-gatherer society and the way things work there. But once you're weaned, when you're running through the undergrowth in Papua New Guinea, your life is a lot different than ours is. It's a whole different way of living. We're not living in 12 to 16 person tribal groups. We're living in a modern society where you do need to have some autonomy and some ability to make decisions for yourself. And when you're breastfeeding at 6 years old, like your mom is coming to your school to give you your lunch break, it sets you up for it. She says it's going to result in less therapy. I don't think so. I don't think so. Will Smith slaps journalist who tries to kiss him.
Well, good for him.
Hollywood star Will Smith slapped a male television reporter who he said tried to kiss him on the lips as he walked down the red carpet for the Moscow premiere of Men in Black 3. The reporter from the Ukrainian television channel 1+1, Vitaly Sidwick, made headlines at the Venice Film Festival in September when he presented a bouquet of clearly unappreciated purple hydrangeas to Madonna and called her my princess. So I guess this reporter is
enamored with getting in the news.
Apparently, or maybe he's just really romantic.
I don't think so. I'm glad I kind of wish Will Smith had punched him, but slapping will work.
Smith said, "Come on, man, what the hell's your problem, buddy?" Smith said as he pushed Serduik away and slapped him lightly across the cheek with the back of his left hand. Ooh, the back of his hand.
Oh, bitch slapped him.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now I like this a lot more.
He's lucky I didn't sucker punch him, Smith said to the crowd of journalists and fans. Oh, I said that on camera. It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's inappropriate to just try to kiss people.
Well, they're saying that it's possible he was trying to kiss him on the cheek. But Smith swiveled to avoid him and made lip-to-lip contact.
I don't know.
If I were a celebrity and people were always shoving a camera in my face, I would be smacking people left and right.
Remember when Buzz Aldrin knocked that dude out or whatever?
Yeah. I like that.
Everyone loved that.
That was great.
He could have killed that guy and people would have been pleased with it.
We have an update on our John Travolta story. His second accuser revealed. His name was John Truesdale, age 40.
Truesdale accusing Travolta.
The man formerly known as John Doe No. 2 was named John Truesdale. The 40-year-old massage therapist was the second man to accuse John Travolta, 58, of sexual battery. The New York Daily News caught up with Truesdale, a former high school football player and one-time U.S. Army medic. I thought I was supposed to be anonymous, says Truesdale, a burly 250-pound certified nail technician and licensed massage therapist. I can't talk about the case. I'm not allowed to give any comment. Apparently, he dropped the suit, but he's going to file a new suit. I'm not sure how that works. But he's not talking about the case because I guess he still wants to have charges pending against Travolta. It sounds to me, with all the stuff that's coming out, that they don't have much to go on.
It's also a he said situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're in the massage room with John Travolta and he does something weird to you, and you come out and you're like, John Travolta just did something weird to me. Well, what can you do, really?
And if all the things that Travolta's lawyers are saying about him not being in the city, if they can prove all that, then I don't know what they're going to do.
That would hurt his case, yes.
That would kind of hurt the case.
Yes.
I just like the idea of the burly former Army medic and football player, 250-pound certified nail technician and licensed masseur.
Yeah, that seems like a biopic just waiting to happen.
Yeah.
I guess you need this case to conclude itself for you to get your ending. But
I could imagine maybe Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson portraying Truesdale in the film.
That's not a bad casting call, is it? Although I'm thinking more of a Philip Seymour Hoffman type. The way this guy, you know what I mean? I'm not thinking like the strong, muscular 250.
Does Philip Seymour Hoffman look like a former Army medic and a college football player or high school?
He looks like he's about 250, and I think he could pull off a nail.
Would you describe him as burly?
I don't know. Maybe husky.
Husky, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Well, you cast your movie, I'll cast mine.
All right, fine. Before I play the closing theme music, I was talking to a listener who said that it was their favorite part of the show. So apparently this is what brings the ladies in. And then we drive the ladies away with That's How Women Are, but then we pull them back with Celebrity Minute.
I think Street Freak of the Week isn't always so popular with the ladies either.
This has been Celebrity Minute on the Warren and Bradley Show. Warren and Bradley Show Beard Off 2012. 2 men enter, only one can emerge victorious, as Warren and Bradley pit one set of whiskers against the other in the ultimate test of follicular fortitude. The rules are simple. No trimming, shaving, pruning, or plucking for one entire month, at the end of which we'll find out who's a man and who's a testosterone-deficient ladyboy.
All right, last week we premiered the scintillating new feature, Beard Off 2012, where, very simple rules, Warren and I are growing beards. Because we're men and we can.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what the payoff is going to be exactly. Maybe just the crazy humor inherent in seeing us with beards.
They always have a beard
Yeah,
just
I
a
guess
couple months ago.
you kinda do.
The payoff is going to be you looking weird with the beard and
Yeah.
people saying weird things about you.
Maybe I'll look really good with a beard. You never know.
I don't know. You look uncomfortable.
But anyway, it's been a week. It's actually been only 6 days for me because I was supposed to shave last Sunday, but I didn't until Monday.
Yeah.
So I'm 1 day behind you, actually. And let me take a look at Warren's beard here.
There it is. Can't even tell, can you? I mean, you have to get close to even see that there's any growth at all.
It looks like the length of what you have is about the same as mine.
But yours is darker.
Mine's a little darker.
You have more on your cheeks.
You have some bald patches on the sides of your cheeks.
Yeah.
You've got a good neck beard going on there, the under neck
It's where it's
area.
thickest, right under my chin there.
It hasn't been long enough for it to irritate me yet.
Oh, really? It's not bothering you yet?
No. It's only been a week, so I don't feel it yet.
When will you start to feel it?
Yeah, usually the longest I've ever been, as I said before, is 2 weeks, and by that point I feel it kind of like itching and scratching, and it's...
This is when it's going to get interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, really, you've never gone longer than 2 weeks without shaving?
It's been about 2 weeks, yeah.
Huh.
And even when I've had... See, because before when you said that I've had a beard, that was me going for about 2 weeks and then putting Just for Men on my face.
Yeah.
Because I have the weird blonde hair, so it makes it look like I have more of a beard than I actually
But that
do.
beard's always looked kind of weird.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And sometimes my skin gets dyed underneath. It's very disturbing.
It just looks too dark, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that looks like somebody drew a beard on you. With a pen
Well,
or something.
they kind of did.
Yeah, I guess
But
so. People
yeah.
at Just for Men Laboratories.
We'll post the pictures of the 1 week update on the Warren and Bradley Show website and also on Facebook.
And we're still sorting through all the pictures of other people who are growing
Yes.
beards, all the listeners.
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me, Warren. For those of you who want to be involved as well, those at home who want to grow their beards, send your pictures to podcast@warrenandbradley.com. Subject Beard Off 2012.
That's right.
Warren,
Yeah.
it's time for listener feedback.
Yeah.
Dear Warren and Bradley, I am writing this missive to let you know that I was utterly delighted with last week's episode. Your tales of prostitutes and the indigent are always quite illuminating, and I say, could you turn off that racket? Turn it off, I say! What are you doing? Can't hear myself making this ridiculous noise.
Listener feedback on the Warren and Bradley Show.
All right, so we had a missive from a female listener. Let me just read it for y'all here. To Warren and Bradley, I have noticed an increase in the number of modern American women who do not shave their armpits. As a woman myself, I find this, shall we say, nasty. What are your thoughts, Warren and Bradley? Women with bushy armpits, attractive, nasty, or don't you care?
What do you think?
I don't give a shit.
I don't care either. It just doesn't make any difference.
Yeah,
to me
it
at all.
depends to me why they haven't shaved their armpits. If they're trying to make some sort of feminist declaration by not shaving any of their body hair, that's kind of annoying because I don't think it's important enough for it to be any kind of declaration, you know?
Well, I remember in the college years, back in the day when I was attending college, there would be girls that obviously had shaved their armpits all through their high school years, and then had arrived at college and decided they were going to become revolutionaries,
Right.
and therefore grow out their armpit hair. And it would grow out in a way so it like grew straight out really aggressively, and it would look kind of strange. Rather than if you just never touched it, it would just look like a little bush down there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that's a little weird.
Yeah.
But I don't care either way.
My rule is, I mean, because I've dated girls I've never dated anyone who was constantly unshaven, I think, but there's been times where like, I'm going to let it all go. And if they are more hairy than me when they don't shave anything, that's an issue. Because I am attracted to women. And
Yes.
a trait of femininity is that they are less hairy than men on average. And so if I'm at the beach with my girlfriend, and I mean, I have fucking hairy legs, if her legs are hairier than mine, that's an issue.
I will say this. You got me thinking about this hair thing, because like I usually don't go in for like excessive grooming in any way. It doesn't really do anything for
That's
me.
obvious.
But yeah, so the only thing that I would say would be something that's really unattractive that a woman should address probably would be like the unibrow.
Well, yeah.
Which is never a good look,
Are you going
right?
to date somebody who has a unibrow, even
No.
if she plucks it?
I don't know.
That's automatic disqualification in my book.
But what if she does a good enough job you don't even notice it?
Yeah, but okay. This is the test that you have to put yourself into this mindset.
All right.
You're on vacation in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
You're on one island. You decide you're going to go to a nice little resort on another island, and you're going to go island hopping on a little turboprop, maybe a float plane.
Okay, this is very elaborate, but yes, I follow you.
Well, this is how it works.
Yeah.
So you get on there, you've got you and your girlfriend and the pilot. She's been trimming her body hair. As far as you know, she doesn't have a unibrow. She doesn't have ridiculously hairy legs.
Yeah.
She doesn't have pubic hair that goes down the side of her thighs.
To her knees, yeah.
Yeah. That's as far as you know.
Yeah.
But then as you're island hopping, there's a horrible plane crash.
Ooh.
You crash land in the middle of the ocean. You make a little raft out of one of the pontoons on the plane. You manage to swim to an island in the distance. You're there for 3 months. At the end of 3 months, you're dating a unibrowed, hairy-legged, armpit hair that goes down the biceps. It like when she puts her arms down, there's a tuft of hair sticking out from underneath. And you had no idea.
I'm at least concerned at this point. I'm trapped on this island, for
But
God's sake.
she's the only person you're going to be able to have sex with, and every time you see her, it's like you're having sex with Ron Jeremy or something.
Yeah, I don't know. The other thing is that I don't know if it's possible for, like, if you do, woman that had an extremely intense unibrow, I don't know if that woman's going to be someone I'm going to be attracted to.
Well, that was my
anyways.
point. Yeah. So
that's
even
probably true.
if she keeps it maintained in our modern society,
But if it was the only thing that, like, was off-putting about her, and she could maintain it in a way that I didn't notice
so
it.
she was breathtaingly beautiful in every
had
way
this
except she had a unibrow.
Yeah. I'd be fine with that.
Really?
Because, I mean, your scenario is terrifying. I know that. But it's very unlikely that scenario is going to take place.
True.
Most likely, we'll always have, like, grooming things around. She'll always be able to groom her unibrow.
But then you're going to have kids, and they're going to be little Eddie Munsters running around.
Yeah. I'm not gonna have kids with her. That's the only thing. She may be perfect in every way, but I'm gonna get rid of that unibrow.
Yeah.
Ethnically cleanse the unibrow, people.
And with that, maybe it's time to end the Warren and Bradley show.
Oh, okay.
Well, let me make sure. Yeah.
Are you gonna call it? Are you gonna call it a day?
I think I'm going to call it. I'm going to call
All
it
right.
right now. Thank you for listening to the Warren and Bradley show.
Yeah.
We hope you tune in next week.
The next episode will be episode 27.
Well, that's right. It's consensual. It's consequential.
It's both.
It is a little.
All right, that's enough. Wrap that up.
Okay. We'll do the wrap up right now. This is one of your hosts, Bradley Victor,
This is the other host, Warren Van.
saying,
Keep your face in the ground and your eyes in the stars.
"Is that right?
No.
Keep your face in the ground." Do.
This has been the Warren and Bradley Show, brought to you by Warren Van and Bradley Victor. For podcast news and information, like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/Warren and Bradley. Follow the show on Twitter at Warren and Brad. Subscribe on iTunes and leave a review. For episode archives and episode pictures, go to warrenandbradley.com, and to contact the show, write to podcast@warrenandbradley.com.